You hear a voice over your kitchen table every morning, and you think you know the story. But what we hear on the air is a fraction. The rest is survival stitched together by a woman who refused to be small. This is the story of Robin Roberts, a child of Tuskegee, a soldier's daughter, and the anchor America trusted when it did not know how to feel. November 23rd, 1960. Tuskegee, Alabama. A house ruled by duty. Colonel Lawrence E. Roberts, a Tuskegee Airman, stood in the doorway with a silence like a command. Lucimarian, the mother, filled rooms with prayer and music. From the very beginning, Robin learned this: strength isn't given, it is required. Storms came early. Hurricane Camille in 1969 ripped through her Mississippi childhood and taught her that safety can vanish in a single night. She learned to rebuild the next morning. She learned that people can be small, mean, indifferent, and that those responses were not the final word. School was her arena. Sports were her rebellion. She left as salutatorian with a hunger that had nothing to do with applause and everything to do with not being overlooked again. When she stepped into newsrooms in the 1980s, the world tested her. Men said sports weren't for women. Athletes snickered. A coworker once muttered, "Sports isn't a place for women." Those words didn't stop her. They found a place inside her that would not forget. She slept in drafty apartments, drove clunky cars that wheezed across empty highways, and carried camera gear in rain. She lived on contracts that could end with a manager's careless decision. She learned to be her own cameraman, producer, writer. Atlanta gave her visibility. ESPN gave her a platform. ABC gave her a home. By 2005, she was the steady voice on Good Morning America, the hand the nation reached for when headlines got too heavy. But fame did not make her invincible. In 2007, a small, cold lump told her the truth. This woman, who made millions feel safe, had a life that could be stolen. Breast cancer came with knives disguised as treatment rooms. Hair fell in clumps. Food turned to metal in her mouth. She learned the terrible lesson that strength often looks like quiet endurance. She wrapped scarves and walked into the studio with a smile that was now battle-tested. The war did not end there. In 2012, another diagnosis: myelodysplastic syndrome, MDS. The marrow that makes life was failing. The only answer: a bone marrow transplant that would crack her immune system and rebuild it from a stranger or from the most faithful of families. Her sister, Sally Ann, stepped forward. A match. A word that becomes everything when sickness is tall and the night is long. Imagine 174 days in isolation. No touch, no hugs. The cameras did not roll in that room. The nation watched in headlines, but only she knew the long, small details, the moments you don't tell an audience because they are too private, and the wonder of your sister offering a piece of herself so you might live. When Robin returned to that desk on February 20th, 2013, the room felt less like a newsroom and more like the most sacred kind of homecoming. "Good morning, America," she said, and 6 million people stopped what they were doing to listen. Not because of a line, because she had come back from the place many never do. Her voice carried the smell of hospital halls and the warmth of hands that had held her when she could not stand. But survival carried its own ache. In 2004, her father, her anchor, collapsed and died while she chased breaking news. She couldn't make it home. Guilt is a weight that sits in your chest during every applause. While she lay in hospital beds, fighting for marrow and breath, her mother, Lucy Marion, slipped away in Mississippi. Another goodbye she barely reached. Loss stacked upon loss. It reshaped. Then there was love. For years, Robin's truth lived behind closed doors. Amber entered her life in 2005 on a blind date. They were not a headline. They were two people who found each other in the margins and then lived a love that required airports and whispered phone calls and the courage to keep choosing each other across coasts and cancer wards. 10 years of distance, 10 years of choosing. When Amber faced her own battle in 2022, the roles inverted, and Robin learned the horror of watching the person who saved your life now needs saving herself. At last, after almost 2 decades of secrecy and survival, they said yes in a tiny Mexican restaurant. No spectacle, only rings and a quiet promise. We've walked through fire and still choose one another. Their 2023 wedding did not demand attention. It deserved it. Today, Robin's life looks like peace the world once denied her. A Connecticut home with a garden she tends, a Key West retreat where sunsets are worshipped, and mornings where she can breathe before the alarm rings. She walks Lucas the dog at sunrise. She collects watches, not for vanity, but as reminders. Every second is borrowed. But the legacy she leaves behind is more than comfort or money. Millions signed up for bone marrow registries because of her fight. Scholarships honor her parents. Quiet donations change lives. She turned private suffering into public service. Here's the hard truth, and the gift. Surviving is not a single triumph you check off. It is a daily decision to get up, to love when it's inconvenient, to hold someone when the world is cold. Robin didn't become a morning anchor because the world handed her a seat. She carved it with a lifetime of discipline, pain, and choices that refuse to make her small. If her story moves you, do one honest thing. Tell someone you love them. Share this video. Sign up for a bone marrow registry. Because sometimes the smallest action becomes the reason someone gets a second chance. She still says it every morning. Good morning, America. And for a moment, when you hear her, you feel steadier. Because she is proof that coming back is possible.